5 million copies sold in its first month, 2 million in the first 24 hours alone. Crimson Desert didn't just sell well, it sold in a way that confused a lot of people, because the reviews were mixed, the story was called a mess, the inventory system got roasted, the opening hours frustrated thousands of players who refunded it early, and yet, 5 million copies. The director of Arcane Lion, the studio behind Dishonored and Deathloop, went on Twitter after playing it and said something that explains everything. He said Crimson Desert functions opposite to most games of this type, that it front-loads the gaminess, the systems, the controls, the rough edges, and hides the magic until you've already accepted the rules. That's not an accident, that's a design philosophy, and it breaks almost every rule the open world genre has spent 20 years building. Today we're going to talk about exactly how it does that and why it worked. Rule number 1, open worlds should hook you immediately. Every major open world game released in the last decade opens with magic. Breath of the Wild puts you on a plateau with the entire world visible beneath you. Red Dead 2 opens with a snow-covered mountain sequence that establishes tone in the first 5 minutes. Elden Ring drops you into a tutorial cave and then gives you the lands between in one sweeping moment. The rule is, show the player something extraordinary right away. Make them feel the world before they understand the system. Crimson Desert breaks this completely. The opening hours of Pywel are messy. The combat hasn't clicked yet. The inventory is already filling up with things you don't know how to value. The systems, crafting, camp building, factions, the Abyss mechanics, are piling on without a clear sense of which ones matter. Players who refunded it did so in these hours, and there were a lot of them. But here's what Pearl Abyss understood that most studios don't. The magic of an open world is more powerful when it arrives after you've already accepted the logic of the place. When Pywel finally opens up, when the lantern starts revealing passages you walked past a dozen times, when the Abyss Islands appear above you, when a world boss emerges from terrain you thought was just scenery, it hits differently than it would have in hour 1, because you earned it. Dinga Bakaba from Arcane described it exactly. The inspirations, the controls, the systems are all you see at first. But after a while, all of that takes the back seat. The magic kicks in and doesn't disappear, because you've already accepted the rules. Most games hide the rules and show you the magic. Crimson Desert showed you the rules first. That's not a flaw. That's a deliberate inversion that makes the payoff land harder for the players who stay. Rule number 2, open worlds need XP and leveling. This one is so fundamental that most players don't even think of it as a rule. You kill things, you get experience, you level up, you get stronger. That loop is the backbone of virtually every open world RPG ever made, from Skyrim to The Witcher to Elden Ring. Crimson Desert doesn't have it. Pearl Abyss's marketing director Will Powers said explicitly before launch that they didn't want to call it an RPG specifically because of this. With the term RPG comes connotations around character creators, experience points, and leveling systems. Those, as players would expect them, are absent from this game. Instead, Crimson Desert uses Abyss artifacts. You defeat enemies, a yellow bar fills, you receive an artifact. Each artifact is sealed. To unlock it, you complete a specific challenge. Maybe kill 3 enemies with a sword in 30 seconds. Maybe slide down a hill for 50 meters. The challenge teaches you a mechanic. The reward unlocks a skill. The skill changes how you fight. There is no number going up, there is only capability expanding. This matters for a reason most players don't articulate but absolutely feel. In traditional leveling systems, grinding makes everything easier. You can outpace the world by farming experience. In Crimson Desert, you cannot grind your way to competency. You have to actually learn. The combat doesn't get easier because your numbers are bigger, it gets easier because you understand it better. That's a fundamentally different relationship between player and world, and it's one almost no open world game at this scale has ever committed to. Rule number 3, open world should tell you where to go. The minimap full of icons. The quest markers floating over objectives. The GPS line that tells you which road to take. These are the language of modern open world design. Systems that exist to make enormous spaces navigable without overwhelming players. Crimson Desert dismantles this almost entirely. The lantern is the navigation system, activated in a cave, and it pulses toward hidden passages. It reveals memory fragments, sealed abyss artifacts, illusory walls that dissolve when you walk into them. The Dark Fog Lantern, unlocked through a specific faction quest in Hernand, reveals ghost holograms and hidden clues that don't appear on any map. Bell towers in major cities, when climbed and rung, remove the fog of war from surrounding regions, a mechanic the game never explains directly. Groups of NPCs in taverns, if you stand near them long enough, generate rumors on your map that lead to hidden boss dens. A sunbeam reflected off your weapon can cook raw meat on the ground, reveal hidden relics, and set fire to wooden structures. A physics interaction the game never teaches you. Pearl Abyss built a world full of things to find and then trusted players to find them without being told they existed. That trust is genuinely rare. Most open worlds are terrified of players missing content. Crimson Desert seems to have been designed with the specific understanding that content you discover yourself is worth 10 times more than content a marker directed you toward. The result is a world that still has players, 5 weeks after launch, discovering things that haven't been documented yet. Rule number 4, open worlds are supposed to get easier. Standard open world progression. You start weak, you build strength, the world opens up, late game areas that were inaccessible become manageable. The world scales with you or you outgrow it. Either way, the direction of travel is always toward the player becoming more powerful relative to the world around them. Crimson Desert moves in both directions simultaneously. Yes, you unlock more skills. Yes, combat becomes more expressive, but the world keeps introducing enemies, bosses, and situations that match and exceed your growing capability. The Abyss, the floating dimension above the regular world, introduces enemy types with their own specific attack patterns and weaknesses that require entirely new approaches. World bosses that appear in regions you've already cleared are not versions of things you've already defeated. They are new problems. The game's expansion of its own systems means the challenge expands alongside the player's ability to engage with it. This is why the Steam reviews are still sitting at 87% positive from nearly 45,000 ratings a month after launch. Players who committed past the opening aren't putting it down because the world keeps giving them new things to engage with rather than becoming a series of familiar obstacles they've learned to execute efficiently. The friction, as Bakaba observed, is sticky. The game is compelling not because it's comfortable, but because it isn't. Rule number 5. Open worlds come from genre specialists. Every major open world we hold up as genre defining came from a studio that specialized in exactly this format. Rockstar makes open world games. CD Projekt Red makes open world RPGs. From Software spent a decade building toward Elden Ring. The conventional wisdom is that making a great open world requires institutional knowledge accumulated across multiple attempts in the same genre. Pearl Abyss had never made a single-player game before Crimson Desert. Their entire history was Black Desert Online, an MMO with a fundamentally different design logic. And that history is actually where Crimson Desert's most interesting design decisions come from. The seamless world with no loading screens, the faction systems, the camp building that functions as a production engine, the reactive NPC population. These are all things Pearl Abyss already knew how to do from MMO design, and transplanting them into a single-player context created something that doesn't quite resemble any of its single-player competitors because it wasn't built by single-player game designers. The world of Pywel feels populated in a way that single-player open worlds rarely do because it was built by a studio that spent a decade making a world that had to feel populated across thousands of simultaneous players. That's an accidental advantage, and it's a big one. So what does all of this mean? Crimson Desert sold 5 million copies, not despite breaking the rules of open world design, but at least partly because of it. The players who bounced off it in the first 3 hours experienced a game that refused to do what they expected. The players who stayed found something that had been hiding the magic until they earned the right to see it. That's not a universally successful approach. The story genuinely needed more work. The inventory system at launch was genuinely bad. There are real criticisms of this game that aren't wrong. But as a statement about what an open world can do when it stops trying to hold your hand, when it trusts the player to figure out the lantern, to find the illusory walls, to discover that sunlight cooks food, to realize the tavern NPCs are giving you real information, Crimson Desert made an argument that the genre has been too comfortable for too long. 5 million people bought that argument, a lot of them are still playing. If Crimson Desert broke a rule that you think shouldn't have been broken, drop it in the comments. If it broke one that needed breaking, drop that too. Hit like and subscribe for more breakdowns like this every week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.